Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to break down two terms that get confused all the time, but are critically different: risk management and crisis management. One's about looking for trouble, and the other's about what you do when trouble finds you first.
And that question really gets to the heart of it, right? It's all about the difference between being proactive versus being reactive. Are you the one scanning the horizon with the telescope, or are you just reacting when the floodwaters are already at your door?
Okay, let's try an analogy to really nail this down. Think of risk management as your preventative medicine. You know, the regular checkups, eating healthy, all the stuff you do to avoid getting sick. Crisis management, that's the emergency room. It's the high-stakes, frantic scramble to save a patient after something has already gone terribly wrong. Both are vital, but they happen at totally different stages of the problem.
All right, so let's start before any alarm bells go off. This is the world of risk management. It's the quiet, proactive work you do to build a fortress against the storms you can see coming. So what's the textbook definition? Well, it's a process. And look at those key words: identifying, assessing, mitigating. This is all forward-looking stuff. It's not a one-and-done task. It's this ongoing discipline of trying to spot and neutralize threats before they ever get a chance to blow up.
And that process usually follows four pretty logical steps. First, you've got to identify what can go wrong. You brainstorm all the possibilities. Then you assess them. How likely is this to happen, and if it does, how bad will it be? Next up is mitigation, which is just a fancy word for your plan to stop it or at least lessen the blow. And finally, you have to monitor everything. You got to keep checking to make sure your defenses are actually working.
And believe me, the stakes for getting this right are getting higher every single year. Just look at this chart. It shows the global financial losses from weather-related catastrophes. Back in the late 80s, the total losses were around $192 billion. Fast forward to the last decade, and that number has skyrocketed to over $1 trillion. That's a mind-boggling jump. And it shows you exactly why this proactive stuff isn't just a nice idea, it's an absolute economic necessity.
But hey, no matter how well you plan, some risks are just going to get through. A threat becomes a reality, an event happens, and in that moment, the entire game changes. You're not preventing anymore. Now you're responding.
And this is exactly where crisis management kicks in. It is, by its very nature, reactive. The focus completely shifts from long-term prevention to immediate short-term damage control. The threat of a fire is gone. The building is on fire, and your only goal is to put it out as fast as you can and save what you can.
When you're in a crisis, it's all about action. Right now, this quote here really nails the two main priorities. You need to make decisive moves to contain the problem, and at the same time, you need a clear, calm communication plan to manage how people are reacting. You have to keep them informed without causing a panic that just makes everything worse.
You know, it's also key to remember that a crisis isn't just one big bang. It actually unfolds in phases. You've got the pre-crisis phase, that's where risk management lives. Then you have the crisis itself, which is all about containment. And, just as important, you have the post-crisis phase, recovery, rebuilding, and, the most critical part, learning.
And that learning part brings us to the biggest takeaway here. Risk management and crisis management aren't two separate things. They're two halves of the same circle, a continuous loop where one feeds the other.
Okay, let's put them right next to each other and see the difference. Risk management, proactive. It's about prevention. It's a long-term, ongoing thing. The whole goal is to avert a crisis. Crisis management is the mirror image. It's reactive, focused on response. It's short-term and super urgent, and its goal is to manage a crisis that's already here.
Now, I know this diagram looks a little complicated at first glance, but stick with me. All you have to do is follow the flow. On the left side, that's your risk management, enhanced resiliency. Then a shock hits, and boom, you move to the right, into crisis management, intervene. But here's the most important part. See that arrow labeled lessons? That shows how the outcome of the crisis feeds directly back to the beginning. The crisis itself becomes the very thing that makes your prevention plan smarter and stronger for next time.
So, you see, the end of one crisis, it's not really an end. It's the beginning of the next chapter of risk management. The tough lessons you learn from the fallout, what went right, what went wrong, what you completely missed, that's the most valuable fuel you have for building stronger defenses for whatever's coming next.
And if you need a number to really feel the stakes of this cycle, here it is: $2.2 billion. That was the estimated cost of recovery for just one event, Typhoon Yolanda in the Philippines. That's the price you pay when prevention falls short, and it's why the lessons you learn from the crises that follows are just so incredibly valuable.
So it all boils down to this one crucial question.
Is your organization focused on building a stronger ship, one designed to weather any storm? Or is it just getting really, really good at swimming after the shipwreck? The truth is, the organizations that truly last, they know you have to do both.